Okay, cool, we're live. Hello everyone, welcome to the live. So today, again, I'm going to be doing human design readings. They are $44. If you would like to get a reading with me live right now, then my information is right here. Once you have paid, go ahead and let me know in the comments and I will pull up your chart in real time and give you a reading, which includes your energy type, your authority, your profile, and your definition, as well as your sun gates. So while we're waiting for those, the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is responding. I talked about informing yesterday, but I feel like we're going to need a refresher for responding as well. Now, for me, personally, as a reader, whenever I'm working with generator or manifesting generator clients, especially my clients that are in my generator experience program, I always try to emphasize the importance of mastering your energy type, which includes your strategy. If you are a generator or manifesting generator, part of your strategy is responding. Now, people get this confused. A lot of people running around who believe that responding means you have to wait to respond to a person or you have to wait to respond to a situation. No. In my personal opinion, my personal interpretation, if your strategy is to respond, you're not waiting to respond. Like, you're not waiting for someone else to give you the okay to respond. You're not waiting for something in the situation to give you the okay to respond. You are responding to your sacral center. When your sacral center says yes, your response is then to go and do that thing, whatever it is. When your sacral center says no, your response is to then not do that thing. Your response is to release that thing from your awareness and focus on whatever is exciting you in that moment. That, to me, is responding as a generator or a manifesting generator. Anyone else in the situation doesn't really need to come into your field of vision. You're not worried about them. Your only concern is, do I want to do this thing? Is this thing exciting for me? If the answer is yes, going and doing it. If the answer is no, releasing it. That is personally how I see responding, because when you get into this cycle of waiting for other people or waiting for a situation or whatever, you're now falling into projector territory, because projectors their thing is to wait for the invitation. You're not waiting for an invitation. Yeah? You're only waiting for your sacral center to give you the okay that this is exciting for me or this is not exciting for me. That is what it means to respond as a manifesting generator or generator, personally, to me. If you have any questions about that, go ahead and let me know in the comments. If you would like a reading, go ahead and let me know in the comments. My information is all here. Something else that I wanted to cover in this live is the connection and the differences between human design and astrology. Human design is not a mainstream thing just yet. There's a lot of people who don't know about it, who don't exactly know what it is. And when I explain it to them, they're like, oh, it's like New Age astrology, right? Yes and no. That's a fine way to explain it to people who don't know what it is. That's the easiest way to get them to understand what we're doing here in terms of what human design is and how it works. However, other than astrology being a part of the synthesis of the human design system, they're actually not really related at all. Like, if you completely took astrology out of the equation, human design still stands on its own as a system. So the way that astrology is synthesized in human design is that the gates, the 64 gates that are in your chart, are also in the sky, and each gate is in a different sign. But when I'm doing a reading for a client, I'm not going to bring up what sign each gate is in, unless they ask me. They're like, oh, I have gate 9 defined in my chart. What sign is that in? And then I can tell them, oh, it's in, this gate or that gate or whatever. But really, when you really get down to what human design is, what it was created for as a system, it doesn't have anything to do with astrology in and of itself. They both use your time of birth in order to determine, where you're defined, where your gates are, all of these things. But human design stands on its own as a system, and it doesn't really require for astrology to be a part of that equation. So even though using astrology as a way to explain to people what human design is can be helpful, I want to make it very clear that you shouldn't be equating these two systems as, you know, being the same thing, or even needing one to stand on the other, because that's not what it is. They're two completely different systems that just happen to use your date of birth, your time of birth, your place of birth to determine what your energy type is, to determine, you know, what gates are defined and things like that. But they are completely different systems. Yeah. There was something else I wanted to mention. What was it? Oh, and also while we're on that, human design actually uses two calculations to determine your design as a whole. So it's not just the exact moment of your birth, it's actually the moment of your birth and also 3 months before your birth. So in human design, there are two parts of your design. Thank you for the roses. This is so cool. I've never gotten stuff before. Thank you so much. Human design readings, no way. Yes way. If you would like a reading, the information's all here. They are $44. Let me know. Are you Asian? I am not Asian. I am Black. I am African American. Thank you. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So human design actually uses two different calculations as opposed to astrology, which just uses the moment that you were born. So the moment that you were born indicates the conscious part of your human design. 3 months before you were born actually determines the unconscious part of your design. So there are two parts of your design that are held together by your magnetic monopole, which is your G center, which is another thing that kind of differentiates astrology from human design. So that's the whole gist on astrology and human design, how they kind of fit together. In terms of explaining it to people, it's an easy way to kind of get the gist of what human design is. But again, we don't want to intertwine these systems too much because they are separate systems in and of themselves, and it can be a little bit confusing when you're dealing with people who are like, oh, it's just astrology. No, it's not. It's its own system. Yeah, okay. So something else that I wanted to talk about in regards to human design, because I get this question a lot on my YouTube channel and also with my clients. They want to know, how do I find my gifts? How do I find my talents? How do I find my strengths in my human design chart? I will always and forever preach the importance of mastering your energy type and your authority. I think that is the number one thing that you need to do if you want to start doing this work, because that is your foundation. However, if you are specific, I want to know how I communicate. I want to know, you know, what's the message that I'm here to share. If you're looking for specific things like that, you're going to want to look at your gates. And your gates are the numbers that are in your centers. The ones that are defined are your gifts. They're your talents. They're your strengths. Those are the things that you can call upon while you're doing what you're doing in the physical world, and where you're going to have the most power to create change. So off the top of my head, if you're looking for like your big gifts and your big talents, you want to focus on your big three, and that's your sun, your moon, and your earth. Because again, astrology is different. Your big three in astrology is your sun, your moon, and your rising. However, with human design, your big three, so to speak, are your sun gates, your moon gates, and your earth gates. Where do you find that out? Okay, so if you have not pulled up your human design chart before, you're going to want to go to mybodygraph.com. Let me see, can I put that in the chat? How do you comment? Oh, found it. Okay. mybodygraph.com. So you're going to want to go to mybodygraph.com. Put in your time of birth, your place of birth, time, place, date, and it'll pull up your human design chart, yeah? So you have your chart sitting in front of you. You're going to see the body graph in the middle, and you're going to have two sides. On the right side, you're going to see black boxes, and on the left side, you're going to see red boxes. From the top, you're going to see the sun gate, your earth gate, and then your moon gate's going to be underneath that. Those are the 3 gates that you want to focus on if you want to know about your biggest gifts and talents. Your sun gates are like your main theme, your main energetic life theme. Yeah. Your moon gates are going to be what drives you, your motivation, and your earth gates are going to be what grounds you, what makes you feel balance in this life. Those are the 3 that you want to focus on first. Those are the biggest ones. They have the biggest impact on your design and on your life as a whole. There are a lot of different gates in human design. There's 64 gates in human design. You can have any different combination of these gates. So the reason why I always preach mastering your energy type and your authority is because when you have this foundation in place, adding in all the other pieces becomes a lot easier. Can you still get accurate info without your birth time? That's a good question. You can, okay, so yes and no. Okay. So without your birth time, getting the accurate information for things like your gates or even sometimes your defined centers and things like that can be a little sticky because the slightest change in time can change your chart dramatically depending on what the time is and where you are in the world. You can figure out your energy type pretty easily. Like I think normally in a day, the type can shift maybe 2 or 3 times. So if you know like round about what time in the day you were born, like morning, afternoon, or evening, you can figure out your energy type fairly easily and fairly accurately. The issue becomes when you want to get into these other more detailed kind of minute pieces. That's when it starts to get a little bit tricky because the subtle changes can create big differences in your chart. So yes, and at the same time, no, which is so unfortunate because not everyone has their birth time on their birth certificate, which I actually did not know. My mom, because I wanted to pull my mom's chart, she doesn't have her birth date. She has a date, obviously. She doesn't have her birth time on her birth certificate. But this was also the 50s, and she's also a Black woman, so they didn't really care all that much, But, yeah, so we kind of had to do like a roundabout guess with her, and we know she's a generator, but that's really all we know. Like, we don't really know anything else about her centers or her circuitry or her gates or anything like that, but we do know that she is a generator. You're what? Okay. That's odd. Anyway, yes. So I always recommend getting as close to your birth time as possible, but for some people that is not an option. So just kind of take everything with a grain of salt. If something doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. Really, taking into account that, it could be accurate and it could not. So there's that. What was I talking about? Oh, finding your personal gifts and skills. Yes. So whenever someone asks me like, oh, how do I find this specific thing on my chart? Normally 9 times out of 10, I'm going to point them towards the gates that are defined in their charts. Yes. Yes. Okay. Speaking of which, while we're on gates, I want to talk about hanging gates. So in your human design chart, we've already kind of talked about this. You have gates that are defined. Yeah. Sometimes you'll have a defined gate, right? And then you'll have a line that almost gets to the other side, but kind of stops in the middle, or maybe it stops up at the top, or maybe it almost got there, but just a little bit left. That is called a hanging gate. That means that you have one gate defined, but the other gate at the other side is not defined. So the circuit is incomplete, even though you have a defined gate, at the other side in the other center. This means 2 things. Number 1, it could mean that the center at the other side where the gate is not defined is an undefined center. However, it could be defined by another place in your chart. And it also means that you are probably going to be attracted to people who complete that circuit for you. So if you have gate 20, which is a gate in your throat center, if you have gate 20 defined, but you do not have gate 34 defined, so you have a hanging gate for your gate 20 that goes from your throat to your sacral center, the chances of you being attracted to someone who has gate 34 defined go up because you have that hanging gate 20. And when they come into your awareness, they are going to complete that part of your chart. So when you're around this person, you have access to energy that you normally would not have by yourself because that hanging gate is there, because the energy is somewhat incomplete. And we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were talking about how we push out energy and how other people complete our charts in this way because we're all pushing out our own unique energetic signature. That's what it is. So when I do compatibility readings or when I do relationship chart readings, those are the big things that I'm looking for, are those hanging gates and also the areas where you are undefined, where the other person is defined, because those are the areas where you're going to cling to them the most because they have that energy that you don't have, and that's normally very attractive to us. Opposites attract. That is actually a thing. That is actually a thing, which is a lot of the time why I notice that a lot of my clients who are not sacral beings, so projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, will normally be attracted to generators and manifesting generators because they have that sacral energy that the non-sacral beings don't have. And when they meet, when they get together, when they form a relationship, that's very attractive because now you have access to all this energy that when you're by yourself, you don't normally have access to. So that's a little thing. However, and I actually do want to touch on this because I got a question about this on my YouTube channel about projector relationships, or even, just non-sacral relationships in general. Because like I said, 9 times out of 10, the non-sacral people are going to be attracted to the sacral people because there's energy there that they don't have. But there are relationships where, a projector and a projector will get together, or a manifestor and a reflector will get together. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like it's uncommon because, I have a few clients who are in non-sacral relationships. The only thing is, number one, you have to understand how the person that you're with sees the world. Yeah, how they operate. And this is why I think human design is so important, because it gives you tangible advice for how to deal with another person based on their design. So like for projectors, general information for projectors is that they have a very deep need to feel validated and to feel appreciated by the people around them. Now, I always preach for projectors to validate themselves. They need a daily self-validation practice that's very, very important. However, to be seen and to be recognized and to be appreciated by another person it's paramount for projectors. So if you have 2 projectors in a relationship, it is important for them to understand I'm with this other person who craves that validation, who craves that recognition and appreciation as much as I do. So I need to be aware and I need to be cognizant that this is important to them, whether they know it about themselves or not. So when I'm going about my day, when I'm moving through this relationship, I should be paying attention to where I can give them that recognition. Where can I give them that validation? Where can I give them those words of affirmations that I know they're actually craving from me, but they may not know how to ask for it. They may not even know that that's what they need. They might be masking it with some other need, some kind of placebo effect. How can I give them what they need, even if they don't know that they need it, right? And I think that goes for honestly any relationship, but specifically for non-sacral relationships, I think that's really important. Also, recognizing that if you're a projector and they're a projector, neither of y'all are going to have the energy to do all of the things. So if you're in this non-sacral relationship and you're feeling like the other person isn't pulling their weight, or the other person isn't, doing as much as you're doing, which is fair, especially if you're living together, if you have a family together, if you have children, things like that. Those are normal kind of relationship qualms. But being careful with your wording, because for projectors specifically, being called things like lazy, undisciplined, unmotivated are deeply hurtful and deeply traumatic, and they have been since childhood. So even when you're going into a conversation that might be difficult, a conversation about workload, a conversation about how we're going to do the physical things in this relationship together, being aware of the words that you are using, making sure that you are honoring the fact that they don't have these huge energy levels, these huge energy stores. And instead of coming from a place of you need to do this, or you need to do more, or you're not doing enough, or you're lazy, or you're this, you're that, coming from a place of how can we now support each other? With us both being non-sacral beings, us both not having all of this energy, all of the ability to do all of these things at one time, how can we support each other? How can this be a mutual support system? What do you need? And how can I now voice what I need? Very, very important, because what I have found in relationships between a non-sacral being and a sacral being is that as long as the sacral being is doing what they want to do and it's exciting for them and they like it, they'll pretty much do it all. And the non-sacral being can come in, with the moral support, the emotional support, the mental support, and everything will kind of go more or less smoothly. However, when you have a relationship between two non-sacral beings, it can get a little bit tricky because you both have a very limited time, a very limited store of energy. So learning how to work within the confines of both of your energetic frequencies is going to be very, very important. I hope that made sense. I didn't know I was going to talk for that long about that particular topic, but that is my take on it. Okay. It's 11:11. Oh, it's 11:19. I missed it. My bad. I was talking a lot. Perspective. Yes. It's really all about perspective. Because when you think about it, every problem in the world is just a question that doesn't have an answer, right? And even shifting how you ask the question, shifting how you're looking at the problem can actually give you the solution. So yes, perspective is huge. This is why I don't like management. Same. And the thing about projectors is that they are meant to be the management. So what I found with my projector clients is that they don't like being micromanaged, but they are very good at managing other people. So as long as they are in the management position, as long as they're in a position where they can guide others and they can look at the systems and look at other people and make it more efficient, they're good. But if someone's trying to do that to them and they're trying to do it in a way that the projectors don't agree with, it's a problem. Because that's the thing about projectors, is that you're meant to be very efficient. You are meant to guide people. You're meant to get people to the goal. And when you feel like you're either being mismanaged or you're doing things in a way that is not efficient, it's so frustrating for you. To do things in a non-efficient way as a projector, especially at the order of someone else, is probably one of the most frustrating things in the world for projectors. Because they're so efficient, because they're so good at guiding people. They're just like, why am I listening to you? You don't know what you're talking about. It's hilarious. I love my projector clients. I really do. They're great. Okay. What else did I want to talk about? So I got a question on my YouTube channel about human design and parenting. Full disclosure, I am not a parent. I have no children. I have worked with parents on, how to deal with their children in terms of their design, so I can give my perspective on that specifically. But I do not have children. I do not have kids. So just, take that as you will. When it comes to parenting through the lens of human design, you really just, it's about understanding. It's not to say that your whole parenting philosophy has to be based on your child's design. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think that's what anyone in the community is saying. That's personally not what I'm saying. For me, when you are a parent and you are looking into your child's human design to understand them, it becomes a lot easier for you to actually use the information to help them, rather than looking at it from, how can I make you do what I want you to do? Maybe not the best way to go about it, But let's say you have a projector kid and a generator parent. As a generator, when you're doing the things that excite you, when you're doing the things that light you up, you have endless stores of energy. However, when you have a projector kid, even if they are doing something that is exciting to them, even if they are doing something that lights them up, they don't have that. They don't have these endless stores of energy that keeps them going. After 2 to 4 hours, they need a break. They need a nap. They need to go, they're done after that. So what's really important in my opinion, when you're dealing with parents and dealing with children, is just having the understanding that you are different. So as a generator, if you're a generator with a projector kid, or even a manifestor kid or a reflector kid, you want to be very aware that you're not saying things like, oh, you're lazy. Oh, you're undisciplined. Oh, you're unmotivated. Why can't you just do this? I did it. You are different. You are different. And when you say those types of things to your children, they start to internalize it, and they start to think that something is wrong with them because they can't do the things that you do as a generator. But when you have that awareness, when you know that I have all this energy because I am a generator, I can't put that on my reflector kid, on my projector kid, on my manifestor kid, So I think my perspective for human design and parenting is first and foremost kind of releasing those childhood wounds that can be created when you don't have this knowledge. Because the deepest childhood wounds by energy type, okay, so for generators, usually their deepest childhood wound is that they're selfish. They only want to do what they want to do. They don't listen. Like, I have a projector nephew, he's 8. School, homework is not his thing, but that doesn't mean that he's not smart. He just doesn't like the way that it's presented to him in school. But when you give him a video game, it's like a math video game, he loves that. He could do it for hours and hours and hours because it's exciting for him. It's fun for him. He's learning, but he's doing it in a way that is exciting for him. And that's when he does the best. But we don't necessarily live in a society that tailors learning for children in this way. We want them all to learn the same. We want them all to do the same work. And we want them all to pass in the same way, which doesn't always work because we are not all the same. So that's the thing for generators. For manifesting generators, it's that they're flaky or they're non-committal. They never stick with anything. Like, that was my thing as a kid. I wanted to do dance and I wanted to do rock climbing and I did horseback riding and ice skating. And my mother, oh, my poor mother, my family members always like, why can't your kid stick with anything? Why is your kid doing all these activities? It's like, because that's what she wants to do. I mean, what? But it made me feel like, oh, maybe I should just pick one thing. Like, let me just, I'm causing the people around me stress and I don't want to do that. No, right? We talked about projectors. Usually for projector children, it's that they're lazy. They're unmotivated. They're undisciplined. You're never going to be successful because you don't want to do the work. Are you kidding me? Who says that to a child? Any child, honestly, but especially a projector child. It's not that they don't want it. Well, they might not want to do work. It's not that they don't want to do it. Maybe they physically just can't. They have no more energy to give. And it doesn't make them lazy. It's just who they are. That's just their energy levels. For manifestor kids, it could be a multitude of things. They're too, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, they're too passive. They're selfish. They never stick to anything. Manifestors kind of get it from all sides. Because, another big thing for manifestors, because they're meant to be leaders, because they are meant to go first and be the trendsetters, but when you're a kid, you have to ask for permission a lot. You can't just go off and do something by yourself because you're a child. But that sense of asking for permission, knowing with your entire body and soul that you're meant to be doing something, and asking for permission to do that thing, and someone telling you no, is deeply hurtful for manifestor children. And they'll either grow up to either not trust themselves or not trust other people. So I'm either not going to listen to what my body is telling me I need to do, or I'm going to do what my body's telling me to do, but I'm not going to tell y'all about it because you're going to spit in my face. Big thing for manifestors, especially manifestor children. And then reflectors, they'll get called out for being too sensitive, for not knowing what they want or who they are, or what they want to do. Because in our society, we're expected to have everything figured out, right? Which makes so much sense. No. So when I am working with a client who wants to use human design to help her parenting, my goal, first and foremost, is to give you the awareness so that you are not unintentionally and inadvertently creating these childhood wounds with your children. My second goal is to give you the tools that you need to be able to work through this knowledge with your kid. I personally operate under the philosophy, and again, I'm not a parent. Don't come for me. I'm not a parent, but I operate under the philosophy that children are just tiny humans. They're not mindless blobs. It's not that they don't understand things or that they can't learn to understand things. They just need to be taught. But they're not humps of clay for you to mold. You are here to teach them. You are here to educate them. And you can do that through the lens of human design while still maintaining the idea that you are the parent and you are still the one in charge, at least, until they're 18. Because, the idea is that as the parent, you are there to protect them. You're there to protect them and educate them so that they can go out into the world and protect and educate themselves whenever the time is right. I feel like I'm rambling at this point. Definitely been called selfish behind me wanting to do what I love. Yes. What two types of people get in this situation? I present an idea. A person says they disagree while saying the exact same thing a different way. I think that can happen with any two people, honestly. Where did my music go? I don't know. My laptop's being weird. I honestly think that can happen between any two groups of people. Because another thing that I think hinders us a lot is that people are operating from, a lot of people call it their shadow. People are operating from their undefined centers, in my opinion. A lot of people who have undefined crown centers are stuck in overthinking. A lot of people who have undefined ajna centers are stuck in trying to make people see things the way that they see things. And it's so interesting to me because when you learn about this and you learn about where you are undefined and where you're meant to not kind of give as much and where you're just meant to just receive, things become a lot easier. You don't feel the need to push things. You don't feel the need to try and prove someone wrong or make your opinion like the one thing that is the truth, because it all doesn't really matter as much anymore when you start to rest where you need to rest rather than trying to push everything onto another person. You start to realize that it's just unnecessary. But it's all the time with a business partner. And the other person said they disagree. That's it. It depends. It depends. Do you know their type and your type? Because that could be, and that's another thing with human design. When you know another person's type, you know how to deal with them. Like, you know how to now come at the situation in a way that's going to be appeasing for them when you know how they operate. And I find that with human design, it's extremely accurate, uncannily accurate. No, that's why I was asking. Yeah. It really depends, because let's say you have like 2 projector business partners, right? You're both very efficient. However, you might have different ways about going about the efficiency. So if one person says, oh, well, if we do it this way, then, this will work and we'll get there faster. The other person is saying, oh, well, that could work, but like, no, if we do it this way, it'll be even better because, this, and this, and, we'll get to our goal faster. At that point, it's either going to become a compromise or the partnership is going to dissolve, because you're both trying to get to the same destination, but you're trying to do it in different ways. Now, I have a sister who's a reflector and a cousin who's a projector, and they work together, like they own a business together. And my sister, who is a reflector, changes from day to day. Like, the way that she views things can differ depending on who she's around, depending on what the situation is. Her views on things kind of shift. My cousin, however, is a mental projector, so her views don't really change from day to day. She looks at the evidence, she looks at the logic of a situation, and she makes her decision based on that. My sister doesn't operate in that way. So when she says things, my cousin's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what? Why would you, like, that made sense to you? Like, what is going on? Where was the thought process? But their thought processes are different. So there usually ends up being a situation where my cousin has to break down everything and explain to her why this isn't going to work, why this is the best way to go about it, and how they can now implement it. And my sister will usually begin to understand, oh, okay, that makes sense. We can do that. But because their perspectives are so different, because they see and process information in such a different way, there's a disconnect in the beginning. But yeah, it could be, honestly, it could be anything. And what I would say in that situation, try and find the disconnect. Like, where is the conversation falling apart? And try to like reverse engineer it. Or kind of evaluate and see if this partnership is something that is working for you or working for the situation as a whole. How to deal with angry manifestors. I'm scared to talk to someone sometimes. Yeah, see, my advice is always to, my number one advice is to not deal with someone when they are in their not self. The not self theme for manifestors is anger. And if they are in their not self, it's not going to be very easy to reason with them, because they're not operating from reason at that point. They're operating from emotion. And emotion and reason don't always go together, right? So if you see that someone is operating in their not self, my piece of advice is always to not deal with them when they're in that space. However, if you don't have a choice and you have to deal with them and they're feeling very angry, your job is not to make them feel better. what I would say is try and help guide them in the way that I'm not the person you should be directing your anger towards. I didn't do it. So, what's going on here? And how can we get you to a space where I can now communicate with you effectively? Because you're at a 10, I'm gonna need you to come down to like a 3 or a 4. But that's not something that you can do for them, because if they're angry, it's because they're either feeling stifled, someone is telling them what to do and they don't like it, they feel like they're not able to do the things that they want to do, or they're feeling like they have no creative freedom. None of which is good for a manifestor. So if you know what is making them angry, or if they know what is making them angry, kind of pushing them to deal with that first, so then you can actually have a conversation with them. That's us going back and forth. Every day I'm your cousin, it's draining me. Yeah. And I applaud my cousin, because she wants to make it work. She really does. But I always wonder, like, is this relationship giving to you as much as it's taking? Because personally, for me, looking in, it doesn't seem that way. Like, I feel like they could have wonderful businesses separately, and when they come together, it's almost like it's like a clash. And but that's just from me looking in. I have no idea what goes on the inside. I think since they've learned, because I've done readings for both of them, I think since they've learned about their designs individually, they've kind of learned to come together and work with each other a bit better and more efficiently, which is great. But I think before, it was very difficult for them to come to decisions on things, to get everything set up in their business in a way that made sense for both of them, because they just see things so completely differently. You saw my message. I thought there was an error. Yes, I saw your message. I was just talking. I was talking a lot. I was rambling, but I did see your message. I have to explain everything 100 times to come to the same conclusion. Yeah. Especially if you're a projector. Especially if you're, and that's another thing. Your energy type is very important, but your profile also comes into account, because the way that you learn is determined by your profile, which is another reason why I think it's so important for human design, for you to have a knowledge of human design, because for me, I'm a 3/5. I learned through doing. I learned through trial and error. I learned through experimentation. My cousin is a 2/4, which means she doesn't have to do things in order to know how they're going to happen. She doesn't have to do something in order to know. She kind of just naturally knows how to do certain things. She's very naturally wise. She was just born that way. So when I decide that I'm going to go off and do something, I'm going to try something and see if it works, she's looking at me like, girl, that ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. That's not going to work. And I'm not listening, because I'm like, oh, I got to try it first. And she's just like, but I'm telling you, it's not going to work. I'm like, well, we're going to see. And then I'll come back and be like, well, it didn't work, but I'm going to try this thing instead. She was like, okay, that's, whatever. But she had to learn with me that I have to try things. That is how I learn. She doesn't have to try things. She kind of just knows what's going to work and what's not going to work. She wants to plan everything. Yes. My cousin, again, she is a mental projector. She likes to have all the evidence. She likes to have all the data. I think she actually works with systems and data as like a manager. I don't know exactly what she does, but she's very good critical thinker. She's very analytical. She wants to have all of the information, all the data before she makes any kind of decision. My sinuses tearing me up right now. And that's how she makes her decisions, is with logic. And yes, planning. She's a planner. She is a planner. I have an issue with my 4 line. Still trying to figure that one out. So the 4 line is less about learning and more about how you're sharing the information that you have learned or that you know. So with the 4 line, your opportunities come from your relationships with other people. You're very good at networking. You're very good at creating connections with other people. And normally, when you are sharing your wisdom, when you're sharing the things that are important to you, when you're sharing the things that you've learned, you're sharing them with that group of people that you have created a connection with. Which is different from a 6 line who kind of share their information with everyone around them. You as a 4 line, your information, your message is not always going to be for everybody. It's going to be for the people in your circle, the people that are closest to you, and that's who you're going to be sharing your information with the most. So usually the people who have 2 large numbers, like the 4 6s, they are not doing a whole lot of learning. My goodness. They're not doing a whole lot of learning. A big part of their design is going to be just sharing what they already know with the people around them and with society at large, essentially, basically. So yes, when it comes to your 4 line, you don't necessarily have to do anything, but it is an awareness and making sure that you are taking advantage of every opportunity that is presented to you, because you are naturally going to attract opportunities and people that are going to be able to help you get where you want to go. But you have to be aware of when those opportunities are presenting themselves to you. So there's a bit of an awareness that goes into being a 4 line, which is why I am so glad that I am not a 4 line, because I haven't developed that awareness just yet. I have not developed that awareness just yet. Okay. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is your life theme. And your life theme, essentially like your life purpose, comes from your Incarnation Cross. And I put a video up on my YouTube channel about Incarnation Cross, but I want to touch on it a little bit here. So your Incarnation Cross is essentially your life purpose, your life theme. And it is a combination of your unconscious and conscious sun gates and your unconscious and conscious earth gates. Now, when I say that your Incarnation Cross is your life purpose, I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to tell you exactly what you're going to do in your life, exactly what your job is going to be, exactly what, car you're going to have. Like, it's not saying that. It's simply highlighting your most prominent gifts, the things that you are the best at, and the things that are going to have the biggest impact on your life. And it's just kind of putting them together in a way that makes the most sense. So you can take from that information and be like, okay, if these are my gifts, if these are my biggest gifts, my strengths, how can I now use this to do whatever it is that I want to do? Like if I want to be a doctor, how can I use these gifts to be the best doctor? How can I use these gifts to be the best, salesperson? How can I use these gifts to be the best mechanic? That's essentially what I mean when I say that your Incarnation Cross is your life purpose. So being an influencer is out. I mean, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because when you are a quote unquote influencer, oh my God. I don't know what is going on with my sinuses. When you are a quote unquote influencer, you still are creating a community. You're not necessarily going to start off with 100 million, followers. I mean, if you do, that's awesome. But most people, start out at a more lowest number. So when you are influencing, or, you know, whatever your content ends up being on, you are still creating a community with other people. Influencing has a lot to do with networking, which you are naturally good at as a 4-line. So it's very possible to be an influencer as a 4-line. The way you go about it might look a little bit different. You might not end up with, 100 million subscribers, but you could probably create a very tight-knit community of 200 subscribers and still make a very good living. Because if all of those 200 people buy something from you, you're still making a living. And you've got a small community. And you're sharing your knowledge every single day. So I will never say to someone, oh, because you're a 4-line or because you're a generator, you can't do this. I'm never going to say that as a reader. I will say you might have to go about it a different way. It might look a little different from, this other influencer, but you can definitely do it for sure. Like there's no doubt in my mind that anyone can do anything. It's just the way you go about it might look different. That's all. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Incarnation Cross. So with your Incarnation Cross, there are millions of different combinations of Incarnation Crosses. And someone asked me the other day if I could tell them what their Incarnation Cross meant. And the reason why I said no is because it is a combination of different aspects of your chart. So in order for me to tell you what your Incarnation Cross is, I'd either have to memorize all 1,000 combinations, 1,000 Incarnation Crosses, or break everything down and read it that way. And that's normally how I will do an Incarnation Cross reading, is that I will break down every single aspect of your Incarnation Cross and give you all of that information, so then you can make a decision on your own. Okay, cool. How am I now going to use all of this information to help me with, whatever it is that I'm doing? That's how I do Incarnation Cross readings. Because I'm not going to try and memorize 1,000 different cross combinations. I'm just not going to do that. I don't have the brain space for it. I don't have the patience for it. That's just not it. No. Okay. What was that? All that I wanted to talk about? I think that's it. Okay, yeah, that was it. So if there are no more questions, which I don't think that there are, I think I got them all. Yay me. Thank you for following. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh my God, what did I do? Wow. TikTok is doing so much. Okay, cool. Okay, yes. So I think I got all the questions. Thank you everyone for joining my live. I will be back probably tomorrow with more things to talk about. And I will see you then. Yay. Thank you to everyone who sent roses and who sent gifts and who followed me. Thank you so much. It means so much to me. I will see you tomorrow.